Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Fulham. We are back and it's a big one today as we come off the back of the first game at Craven Cottage for the 25-26 season. A 1-1 draw against Manchester United. A result that could have really gone either way. Man United with a couple of good chances early doors. A contentious decision for a penalty. Another one for the Man United goal and then a fine finish from Smith Rowe to make it 1-1, and Fulham probably dominating the last periods of the game. A really good game, and here to talk it all through, as well as some breaking news and some other bits and pieces to talk about, we have Sammy. How are we going, Sammy?
Hi, I'm going good. I'm a little bit manic right now. I've been up since 6 a.m. I had the early shift today. But it's been a lovely day for me. I've had a pep in my step. I'm a bit confused because I don't really know the room that Dad's currently in right now. It might be a study. He might have done some reworking. That's throwing me a little bit. But otherwise, I'm very happy to be here. I'm reserving all the football chat when we get into football chat. But I'm just enjoying being Swiss and just saying hello to you guys. It's also like me and Dad talk about this all the time. I like when we make all three of us together special. It's like an Avengers Assemble kind of moment. So I like that we're using this for the first game of the season at Craven Cottage. What a wonderful time for the original crew.
Lovely. Thank you, Sam, for the little spiel to start with. And Dad, how are we going tonight?
I'm very well, and I'm very, very happy to be back. It's been quite a while. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Thank you, family, for being here. Thank you for being. And the reason you probably didn't recognise the room, Sam, other than the fact that I've got it blurred out, is that it's the room you normally sleep in, but you're normally looking at the ceiling. So that's why you don't recognise it.
But like, what's the back area? Because wasn't there stuff before that? No,
this is not worth talking about. Let's move straight into the game itself.
It is not worth it.
Let the audience decide.
Yeah, they say move on and talk about football. Okay, so guys, a big game. First game of the season obviously was, a 1-1 draw against Brighton. I think a good result. We knew we had a tough start to the season with Man United as our second game. First game at home. I believe the stat was we haven't got even a point from Man United at home in our last 8 attempts. In fact, we'd lost, I think, 4 games in a row at Craven Cottage for the first time under Silva. This could potentially have been a slippery one, especially as, I don't know if you guys watched Man United against Arsenal. I know they lost that game, but I was impressed by Man United. I thought they looked much, much better than they have done previously. And I was going into this one a little worried, to be perfectly honest. I felt like this was a different Man United side than we've seen over the last couple of years. Sammy, before this game, how are you feeling?
Okay, so I, like you, also watched the Arsenal game because I was genuinely quite interested in Man United. They did some pretty key signings in Cunha and Mbeumo, and I was just kind of interested to see where they're at. I've got a lot of Man United friends, and I wanted to see how like those signings worked. It was pretty evident, even from the Arsenal game and in the first couple of minutes of the game at the Cottage, that they've signed some extremely talented players, like extremely talented. I mean, I remember last year, Cunha just completely tore us apart. But
What is going on there, Sam?
Yeah, we might have lost Sammy there. Dad, I'll throw it to you, though, but on Sam's points there, talking about the new signings, let's talk about Cunha and Mbeumo, because they're obviously their 2 biggest signings who've probably impressed the most, and we're really struggling with Sam there. Cunha and Mbeumo, Dad, tell me your thoughts on those 2 and how they change the way Man United play.
They were. Cunha especially was very impressive early. He was slightly terrifying, actually. And he's always been a problem for us. I think everyone understands his quality, and we're probably rightfully anxious and concerned about coming up against him. And, to be fed by a pretty decent midfield and just a lot of quality around him. I think he was always going to be a difficult customer. And that's what we found early on. I think, without jumping too far ahead, I actually think we managed him pretty well on balance for the whole game. Same with Mbeumo, because they could have caused absolute havoc for us. I mean, Cunha showed his quality, but actually I think we were equal to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that Cunha was playing at Wolves last season and how high quality he is, because I think he was the standout player for Man United for the majority of the day. I know players like Fernandes always plays well, and Mbeumo also I thought had an okay game, but Cunha is a different level. And early doors, we were under a lot of pressure from Man United. They had a couple of chances early on. I think it's Cunha who hit the post, and Mbeumo looked dangerous going forward. And we, as always seems to be the case, we really struggled to settle. Man United attacked us hard right from the start, and we looked a little bit like Bambi on ice a few times, especially defensively, despite a couple of changes that I thought would actually solidify the back line, with Castagna coming in at left back and Bassi moving into that centre-back position again. It was a shaky start from Fulham. Dad, fortunate maybe that Leno had such a good game, and we were talking beforehand about who we thought man of the match was, and a lot of people thinking Anderson, a lot of people saying Lukic. I thought Kenny Tete was up there, but actually when you consider what could have been if it wasn't for a couple of very good saves, especially that one early on when Cunha pulls the ball out of mid-air and pokes the ball goalwards. You see those go in all the time, but Leno makes a superb stop. Fortunate maybe to get out of jail scot-free effectively in those first sort of 5-10 minutes as we really struggled to settle.
Yeah, I think if you really want to pull it apart, I think we're still not settled with Robinson not being fully fit and absolutely not starting, which always forces. I think it forces Marco to almost overthink our defence. In reality, Tete, Anderson, and Bassi actually coped incredibly well, and Cesc actually did a really, really good job. I wouldn't have minded. What's his name? Oh God, I forgot his name. Our Spanish boy.
Cuenca.
You're muted, Jack.
Cuenca.
Thank you. Yeah, Cuenca. Brain fade. But I think, but perhaps sort of Castagna in the middle. Oh, sorry. Up, pushing up quite high, just gave us a weird shape and actually gave them the impetus to really come at us and left us quite flat-footed. We just seemed to be absolutely behind the 8 ball for that first 5, maybe 10, even 15 minutes until we kind of settled it. And shape-wise, it didn't change, but we just seemed to be a little bit more settled and playing a little bit more confidently. I thought we defended really, really well, and I thought Leno was outstanding. In short,
Yeah. Sammy?
Before I got cut off by my internet, did you guys get any of what I said or no?
We got Man United made some good signings, which is correct, I think.
I made some great points after that. Okay, wait, what have we talked about and what haven't we talked about? Basically,
everything what you made great points about has been talked about already. So,
don't worry.
I mean, we talked effectively about how Man United got off to a really good start. How we were probably lucky to maybe get away with not conceding, kind of thanks to Leno, ball hitting the post. And then we did settle in, I'd say, after about 10, 15 minutes, the game started to just sort of lose that edge where Man United were definitely on top, it felt. And it just seemed to level out a little bit. Sammy, go for goal. Give us some thoughts.
Thank you. Okay, right. Again, this is what I was saying before I got cut off by life. So what I was kind of gauging in the first couple of minutes of this this game, and it is very similarly to the Arsenal game as well. You can see that Cunha and Mbeumo are amazing players, but you can see that they hadn't gelled really as a team. I mean, that is the antithesis of that is the fact that they didn't score in the Arsenal game. And it took them a very, very long time to break us down. So the key thing that I was actually holding out for was I'm pretty sure, even though they were significantly better individuals, we were going to be the better team overall. And I think we actually did show that, especially in the first half, because that first 10 to 15 minutes, Man United were all over us in the exact same way that if everybody comes in at full energy, the best players are going to shine like the hardest. But I think as the game went on and over time, it was really, really clear that we had a better system, we were better drilled, and I think that was a massive advantage for us. I did have good points.
There was a really good tactical breakdown and analysis on the Premier League app or website. And it talked about the fact that Marco went to effectively a 5 at the back. And, we were having maybe a little bit of a whinge about it early doors because it can seem a bit of a negative tactic to deploy, especially when we know that this is a Man United team who we've performed quite well against over the last couple of years. But the analysis basically said that in doing that, we matched Man United's system of 3 at the back. And it kind of nullified what works for them. Castagna and Cesc, like you said, I thought they both had really good games. I thought Kenny Tete was superb throughout. I think he's actually my scratchy for man of the match because I think he really nullified what is quite a massive threat from Man United. So I think it's one of those ones where it's always a toss-up. Do you go 5 at the back and potentially be a little bit negative and take away some of that attacking prowess in order to tactically outmaneuver the opposition? And I think really we kind of did tactically outmaneuver Man United. If you look at the overall game, we were talking about the XG earlier today, and it was actually similar. Fulham actually had a higher XG than Man United. Man United's XG, I think, for the game was 1.5. If you take away the penalty, which I think is like a 0.75 XG, it actually massively shows that we outplayed Man United, and they hit the post as well. I'd say that was probably a 0.4 XG. So really, they had a small number of chances, and we probably were the more dominant side throughout, and that's what Marco said post game as well. Dad, your thoughts? Let's sort of talk about the selection. Would you have liked to see us be a little bit more maybe attacking and more positive? Or do you think actually trying to outthink Amorim and nullify his tactic was a better way forward?
Well, maybe Marco's principal idea or thought, in his chess piece placement was he's 5 at the back, which then most likely involves Castagna rather than, say, Wilson, who we'd maybe prefer to have on from an attacking and sort of on the ball kind of value going forward. So I can kind of see that if that's his principal focus, why Castagna starts. To be fair, I thought Castagna was average in those first 15 minutes. I didn't think he was good because he rarely finds himself that far up the pitch, and he looked a bit awkward. Whereas, Wilson might have been better in creating more going forward, but I'm not sure that he would have done the same job to the same effect to help defence. So I can kind of see both sides of it. I think, to be very fair, I think Sessegnon, if you go back 12 months, I don't think you'd expect Sessegnon to actually do that well, holding down that role. And as much as we're clearly missing Robinson in terms of his dynamism and also his ability to just cover off mistakes or holes when people get in behind. He's so fast that he's able to recover so quickly. It's pretty invaluable. We kind of book that and bank that every week and take it for granted, but it's a huge skill attribute. So I think, on balance, we actually sort of defensively, as I said before, did remarkably well under a lot of pressure. And I do agree with Sam's point that yeah, they've spent a lot of money at United, but there's still a lot of individual kind of brilliance there that if they can put that together, that will be a very dangerous attacking side, no doubt about it.
But they weren't going to put that together in like 2 or 3 weeks.
No.
An interesting point you make there about Sessegnon, which I just want to touch on a bit, and it sort of connects in a way to the lack of transfer business that we've had so far. But you look at the starting lineup, Sessegnon obviously didn't really come into his own until maybe halfway through last season. Josh King, we only saw a handful of appearances from last season. But these are two players now who are actually quite key to everything that we do. And I think, yes, we haven't made some signings, but there has been quite a lot of progress from our squad and the depth in our squad, where you look at someone like Sessegnon, I would be happy for him to start every week based on the way he's playing at the moment. I know he came in to do a job effectively and to play a weird sort of 5 at the back sort of system. But I wouldn't have any issues seeing Sessegnon start on the wing most weeks. I think at least in a rotation capacity, but it doesn't feel like that sort of fill-in role that we thought that he would be. And you look at Josh King, I would love to see Josh King start every single game this season, even if he's not incredibly effective in every single game. I think he actually has a spark in him that it's worth chancing it every game. Similar to what we sort of saw from Smith Rowe, but I think he's probably more impressive than Smith Rowe was last season, where you saw those occasional glimpses from Smith Rowe. Whereas with Josh King, you know that he's got the ability. It's now just about the experience, I think. And the more he plays, the more he learns, the better he'll be. So it's kind of similar in a way where we're seeing this player grow into themselves. I think I'm seeing some comparisons between Smith Rowe and King, and I'm glad we saw Smith Rowe come on and score the goal as well. Well, let's talk about, I guess, the first half in general was kind of Man United dominating early, Fulham coming back into the game. We got to halftime. There were no huge chances, I think, outside of those first 15 minutes for either side. Halftime 0-0. I think this one felt like it could go either way. Actually, the penalty happened in the first half, didn't it?
Yeah, penalty happened in the first half.
Of course. Let's talk about the penalty. In fact, I think I pulled up a slide for it here. No, that's the wrong one. The penalty. So Calvin Bassey at the back post pulls down Mason Mount. It is a little heavy-handed, let's be honest, especially if a directive has been made to referees to say, keep an eye on holding in the box. It's a bit silly from Bassey. He pulls down Mount. The problem for me is that this has been happening year on year. And you look behind Bassey and Rennes gets absolutely poleaxed by Luke Shaw, who just runs into the back of him and pushes him over. Both of you, I'll start with you, Sam. Your thoughts, should this have been a penalty overturned by VAR?
I mean, my main kind of criticism of it was it felt like it was like 10 minutes after it actually happened. So I feel like when those things happen, I feel like there's like a window in which you can kind of like call it out. But
to go on that though, they did say that VAR can't stop a game mid-play. They have to wait for the ball to go out, and the ball stayed in play for a very long time while they were checking it.
Okay.
And they were waiting for the ball to be dead before they sent the ref to go and look at it on the screen, basically.
Okay, all right. No, I can appreciate that a little bit more. Then that did wig me out.
It was annoying though. It felt so far past when it actually happened.
Yeah, I think in any other scenario, if we're not like bringing computers into it, I think any other referee would have probably just let that die a little bit. Look, I mean, yeah, he's heavy-handed. I mean, but he's a defender. It's a bit of a difficult one. It's hard, isn't it? Because it's like body on body. It's not as something direct as like a push in the back. I think he's just clearly completely outmuscles Mason Mount. Look, I can kind of see it. I think it's a bit weak. But you know, I think even though it was a little bit weak, I think justice was served because I think it was a bit of a bollocks decision, and Bruno Fernandes just like ruined his opportunity. Wasn't he whinging about like Kavanagh essentially just like ruining
Yeah.
his vibe or something like that?
Well, let Dad tell us his thoughts on if it was a penalty or not before we talk about the actual penalty. Dad?
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, my initial thought when I saw the replay, I wasn't even focusing on it in the scramble in the 6 yard box. So I didn't actually see it watching it live on TV. When I saw the replay of it in slow motion, God, it looks pretty bad. Talk about heavy-handed. If you cheeked a bouncer at a club and he took you down like that, I think you'd be thinking that was extremely heavy-handed. But I mean, Mason Mount's not that small. Maybe Bassey's just that big. Mason Mount's 1 meter 80.
Bassey
What
is
does
a
that
big
make
boy.
him?
Yeah, like 6 foot ish.
Yeah, he's not tiny, but in terms of stature, he's obviously very different. Interestingly, I mean, Mount's got hold of Bassey's shirt as he's going down. He's got hold of his shirt. He just loses the ruck. So it's sort of frustrating. But I think Bassey just did a bit too much. It's a bit undisciplined. And
I think he does in general. That's his sort of style of play. It's very physical and hustle and bustle, and he does get a bit throwy sometimes. We've seen it. His arms are often out wide or wrapped around people.
Okay. So the test then is if someone did that to, I don't know, Smith Rowe, not a big guy like Mooney's, but throws a medium-sized bear to the ground like that in the box and a corner, are we screaming for a penalty and absolutely miserable if it's not given?
I mean, I wouldn't be miserable if it wasn't given, but I'd be wondering why. I think you could also argue, we talk about this all the time, how come that's not given as a penalty, but if it happened on the halfway line, it would be given as a foul. If Bassey did that to someone who he was challenging for the ball with on the halfway line, it would probably be given as a foul still.
Oh,
You know,
100%.
he grabs him and throws him to the floor. So
Yeah.
I know you kind of do get away with that, or you did get away with that in the box before at corners. Obviously now you can't anymore, so you have to change the way you play. The problem is, as David Wellington on our live stream on YouTube says, Match of the Day did highlight that Mount actually initiated putting both arms around Bassey to block him for Casemiro to get a free header. And the problem there is that I don't think VAR looked at the fact that, yes, Bassey threw him to the ground, but Mount grabs him and puts his arms around him first to block him. Bassey just says, okay, well, if you're going to try and do that, I'm going to throw you out of the way. And you shouldn't be penalised for being stronger than someone else.
Yeah,
which
because
I
like,
think is what
You got
the
to,
point you were
but
trying
you've
to
got to
make
get
there,
that right. You've got to get it right.
Yeah, 'cause
And
it's like-
also, I'm actually okay with. I hate this business of, you know, a particular incident that happens in the midfield is blown up and it's given as a foul, but it's not given in the box because of the implication and the consequence of giving the foul, which could result in a penalty. I don't care. It should be equal, and I'm happy for the game to be as physical as you like, but it should be consistent all over the pitch, because the moment you do that, the moment you're getting the ref to overthink things. He's overthinking whether or not he's going to blow it up, or indeed VAR, because of the consequence. And that's not right. It actually introduces problems. So I don't like that.
It becomes an ethical conundrum as opposed to is it a safety thing or not? Because if that situation happens to Casemiro, I think it is a bit of a different context. Maybe there's a little bit more of a contest there. Same situation happens. I'm not sure if that's a penalty. It might be.
Yeah,
it might be.
I think you're right, though. I think Casemiro probably stands his ground a little more because maybe he's a similar build. And as Claire says here in our live stream as well, I think Shaw fails Muniz first. Apparently they checked that and said that it happened just afterwards. I think it was on the line as to who was first in there. I think, look, if this is now the directive, it needs to be incredibly strongly policed, and it needs to be incredibly consistent as well, because this happens all the time. If people are going to start if we have a similar thing happen next week, which I know will happen because Muniz is strong in the box and he'll get thrown to the floor at some point, we need to see VAR pull it up and look at it and give a penalty for it. I thought, as the title of the podcast is, and a few people are saying, the elephant in the room is, does the badge change the decision? And I think across the board,
Yeah, of course.
Kavanagh had a shocking game refereeing. He was letting things slide. To be fair, I thought he was shocking for both sides. I don't think he was overly one-eyed. He was just poor across the board, and it was pulled up on the BBC live text commentary of the game, and a few other places. I've seen a lot of people saying Kavanagh had a bad game. Sammy?
Well, I do think it's interesting as well because going forward, I mean, we will move on from this, but that one kind of takeaway I got when I was actually watching the game and the highlights is I'm not sure like if I'm not sure if this is just a Man United thing or kind of like indicative of all the other teams in the Premier League, probably bar Liverpool because they're also massive. But we're actually a really big team, like physically. We're actually quite imposing in comparison to especially Man United. I mean, Man United are better players, but we felt a lot bigger than them. And I think Silva actually quite likes big boys. I mean, Berg, Bassi, even Lukic, Anderson. Like, there's some Muniz, there's some big boys on the park, and like I think going forward, it's if this is the way that things are going to be judged. Although I do think it's more of a top six against everybody else kind of thing. It is kind of cause for concern and maybe a bit of a change of tactic. But yeah,
Well, the thing is, though, if we're talking about penalties and new rules and how they're implemented and consistency, and I know we're jumping forward, so I won't directly, but it's very difficult to disconnect my reaction to the first penalty given against Bassi to what happens to him later in the game.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, well, let's talk about the penalty itself. We don't really need to say much apart from it was terrible. Fernandez, I've seen him try and blame the referee. He does step into Kavanagh, but then, as they've said, we saw Fernandez able to fully reset himself and settle, so you can't possibly blame the referee because he had another sort of 40 seconds before he had to take the penalty kick. It's not like he got tripped up and then had to take it 5 seconds later. It's a bad penalty. Fernandez, his head is completely gone and you can see it on the field. Interestingly, I noted Ruben Amorim's head is completely gone as well. The fact that he couldn't watch the penalty, and as the commentator said, if this was the last minute of the game, then I understand having to look away. But when you see your manager having to look away when you can see the corner because he's so worried, that's not good body language. I saw it multiple times during the game.
Yeah, it happened a few times.
Shocking stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, 0-0 at halftime. Let's talk about the goal that Fulham concede. And again, it's a contentious one. Lenny Yoro pushes Calvin Bassey quite clearly in the back with two hands. Being Australian, that is a free kick in pretty much every sport. Two hands in the back. It's clearly a foul. Lenny Yoro then wins a header. It rifles into Muniz's back and then just manages to nip past Leno's foot. Just a quick and simple one, Sammy. Should that have been a foul and ruled out? And why didn't VAR rule it out? Because of the badge?
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of think slightly for the badge. I think that will always take precedent. I mean, there is a benefit for Man United doing well. That's just textbook capitalism. Look, honestly, do I think it's a foul? I'm not sure if I actually do think it's a foul. Maybe that's a bit contentious, but I mean, I don't think
maybe a soft one.
It's a really soft foul, almost to the point where, like, if it was the other way around, I think I'd allow it. And then from that kind of like basis, I don't think it's a foul, because I think if we got the goal in that scenario, I wouldn't be saying it's a foul.
Yeah, well, like the other infringement in the box on the Bruno Fernandes or the Bassi infringement. What am I saying here? On the first penalty, that that was waved away because it was kind of off the ball, even though in the 6-yard box, no one's off the ball. But it's sort of waved away as being inconsequential. Yoro, two hands in Bassey's back, gives him an absolute clear header, unopposed, and Bassey's got his ass on the floor. It's not like he's just pushed away and brushed aside. He's on the floor. He cannot compete. That's a significant. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you find a sort of pressure point and press him on the neck and he falls to his knees. It doesn't matter how hard you push him. It's the effect of it. He's cleared the space. He's got clean air, and he can head the ball. Pretty crap header actually, but nevertheless, he heads it, and unfortunately into the back of Mooney's, who arses it into the goal. Beats Leno, even though it wasn't coming with any real force. Changes direction so aggressively.
Well, I mean, it's
no
an own goal because Yoro's aimed for the back post, and it was going wide of the back post. It's come off Muniz and gone in the near post.
But
so
I mean,
it was
no
it's
chance,
completely
Leno.
wrong-footed. Leno, he's got no chance there. It's unfortunate.
But I think if you really want to look at that, and okay, I'm going to allow Kavanagh to take the easy way out and not blow that up and chalk that off himself. Why would he ever do that? But VAR in the cool light of day can think about that, have a few minutes to think about it. I mean, clearly they have a lot of time to think about it, really. And I'm very, very surprised that they don't see the implication of Yoro's two-handed push. I mean, let's be fair. You're on mute, Jack.
Sorry.
No, I wasn't talking. But yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it would have been a soft foul, but the fact that VAR checked it and said that what Yoro did didn't affect the play is just outrageous as a decision. And as I can't remember who it was, it might have been David Ornstein or one of the Simon Winter, maybe one of the sort of journalists on Twitter, basically came out and said the FA need to release the conversations that were had from that VAR check as soon as possible to help understand why this wasn't given as a penalty, because it makes no sense. And everyone was saying it's such a clear push, and the player who pushes, the player who commits the push then wins the header. Like, how can you say that that's not winning an advantage? Even if it's a soft one, it clearly affects the play, because if he doesn't push him, Bassey challenges for that header, and the play ends up completely different. So I just think it really is, and you could call it badge bias, sure, but it's a case of consistency. Bassey's been pulled up for fouling in the box, and I'm sort of like, okay, well, it's kind of dumb to foul like that, but then you can't allow Yoro to foul in the box and get away with it as well. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. Well,
Jack, to Claire's point, Claire just made a comment which is now rolled off the feed, but she made a comment. What do we think about the ref being mic'd up? And my comment to that is excellent, brilliant, but what I really want to is VAR audible.
Yeah, well, VAR, their conversations are recorded, and they do release those as well. The video, they release a whole video showing the decision process being made.
But it doesn't matter anymore.
The ground, real time creates that's a massive amount of transparency.
I don't think it is, but I don't think it actually changes the decision, because they'd still be saying the same thing, because they're sitting in a room somewhere else away from the stadium. Sure,
dick, and it's embarrassing.
But they know that these recordings are going to be released anyway, so you do always look like a dick. I think the problem is the refereeing standard is not good enough, and there is a clear bias there where you're just not being consistent.
Independent enough. You've got the fox looking after the chicken coop, or you're basically the mother-in-law looking after keeping the anyway. Carry on.
Anyway, let's move on and talk about the equaliser. Substitutions were made. I think there were the right substitutions. I would have liked to see Adama come on later in the game, but he didn't. But either way, I think the introduction of Harry Wilson made a big difference. Similarly, bringing on Robinson, who's clearly just not quite there yet, but it was good to see him get on the pitch. It means he's not too far away. just didn't look like he had that sharpness that we know that he does have.
Definitely,
So I think he's probably a few weeks away, when maybe after the international break we'll see the best of Robinson again. And then after that we saw Smith Rowe come on, as well as Jimenez. I thought Jimenez actually looked quite busy up top, which was kind of good to see. And I think Smith Rowe, immediate impact, comes on, scores the goal. Dad, your thoughts on the substitutes? It's 2 weeks in a row now, and we know that Silva's very good at this. I saw a great stat on the Premier League website as well, saying since the start of last season, Fulham have, I think it's like 6 of the 7 quickest substitute goals, where we've had, I think 7 of our goals have been scored within like 3 minutes of subs coming on by substitutes.
I have so many thoughts on this.
Go on then, Sammy.
Okay, I understand players wanting to start. I understand all that. I understand that these are athletes. They have egos. They're almost kind of a bit like actors. They need to be cuddled and supported and yada 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 and all that. But I think it does require some level of maturity. And I know it's a big stretch to ask for emotional maturity out of people who are paid to professionally kick a ball. But at the same time, the game has evolved so much in even the past like 15 years, to the point where strategic substitutions are such an important part of a game. So I was actually a little bit bummed that Muniz was starting, just because he is so much more likely to get a goal when he can like be an impact sub off the back of like 20 minutes at the end of a game and be super impactful, in the same way that I think Smith Rowe does the exact same thing. Let Josh King start, let him race around, prove his worth and be great. And then when you need somebody more clinical to come on, you can do that with Smith Rowe. I think it's actually a really effective way to do the game. Man City have been doing this for years. Obviously, they have so much depth. But if you can do it smartly, strategically, in the way that Silva does, trust the guy, because he really knows how to do it. And I want to see people like Muniz score. I want to see people like Josh King score, even though that's like a long way off. And I get really riled up the wrong way when players are just kind of like, I'm not starting this, that, and the other. Don't you want to get goals and be a hero? Sometimes you're a hero when you come on at the 60-minute mark. That's my piece.
Yeah, I don't fully agree with that. I think
that's okay.
You play your best 11 at all times, and I think.
But your best 11 can be different at different periods of the game.
Yeah, no. Your best 11, you play your best 11 from the start of the game, and if they can remain fit throughout the game, you keep them on the pitch for as long as possible. You make substitutions based on what's happened throughout the game, but you shouldn't leave someone off to think that after 60 minutes they'll have an impact. Similar, like I think Adama can be a great impact player because he's very quick and strong, and that's good late in a game. But also, there were times last season where I think we should have just been starting Adama from the start, because he was probably one of our most informed strikers. He was putting good balls into the box, and it seemed like a waste to not have someone who was so dangerous on the pitch for 90 minutes, because it does take players time. You see it often, Muniz can come on for the last 20 minutes of a game and get 3 touches. And it's
but
sort
against tired legs though. And so it's a different scenario as opposed to him getting 3 touches at the start of the game when
there's tired legs around him on his team as well. That's a problem. Like, it's tired legs that you're playing against, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a higher impact, because you might not get the opportunity, because sometimes you only get 5 chances in a game, and those 5 chances might all come in the first 60 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to cut through here.
Go.
Two things. I think if we weren't a goal down, Silva would have actually left that change till a little bit later, like he usually does.
Yeah.
He actually made that change relatively early for Marco Silva, which turned out to be a great thing.
70th minute, which is, quite early.
It's early for him. It's 5 to 10 minutes early for him, which is kind of fortuitous if it comes off, right? I personally, I would have actually liked to have found a way to keep King on, because I didn't think, arcing back to what we were talking about earlier, and also some of the comments being made in the Discord, there's a bit of negativity around King in that I think some people thought he underperformed yesterday. I thought he was excellent. I thought he was bright. I thought he did some really clever things. He found himself in some really good pockets, and people were passing the ball to him, predicting that he would be there. That's the kind of thing that's really encouraging, that you want everyone else to be knowing that he will do that. It just didn't
There's
come
a lot
off.
of confidence in him around him. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's really a good sign because he's making those runs, and too few people have been doing that in the past. I mean, Smith Rowe's got the ability to do that, and he's really dangerous when he does it. Just doesn't do it enough. He just doesn't have the confidence or he doesn't have the kind of energy levels to do that on a regular basis. So I would love to have seen Josh King actually play the game out. He seems like a very fit kid to me. He didn't look like he was tiring, but I think positionally Silva, decided that he wanted to give Smith Rowe a chance in that position. And hey ho, who am I to say anything? He came on a minute later, he scored, and good for him.
Yeah, Man United tactically as well do overload the central midfield, which is where King was playing. So it was always going to be a slightly tougher day for him.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, I think he actually played quite well. It wasn't his best game when you compare it to how he was in pre-season and maybe against Brighton as well. I think, though, he proved that he is not going to be overawed by the sort of situation around him and the teams he's playing against. I'm more than comfortable sticking with King through the whole season.
Plenty to be excited
100%.
about.
Look, Sammy, good finish from Smith Rowe, though. It's interesting. I don't know if you saw any of the post-match. Iwobi, Smith Rowe said, I make those runs because I know that Iwobi's aiming for me. And Iwobi went, well, I was actually aiming for Jimenez, but yeah, I'm glad you were there anyway. But a good finish from Smith Rowe. And that's the kind of stuff that I think we missed from him last season, crashing the box like that. We saw Harry Wilson do it really well at the end of last season. But to see Smith Rowe getting into a position where he's getting on the end of crosses like that, we've missed that.
Yeah, look, I mean, okay, so King and Smith Rowe are very different in the sense that one is trying to prove themselves and the other is a redemption arc. I know you can argue that there's kind of semantics in there, but there is a difference in a plucky young 19-year-old, 18-year-old, whatever, like really trying to assert themselves, and then somebody else trying to find their feeding again after having their confidence a little bit knocked. Smith Rowe is a baller. He is an extremely talented player that probably doesn't necessarily have a consistent level of self-belief, but he can do it. He's always been able to do it. That's not a question. I think the question is more what's kind of going on for him, and is he confident on the day or not? I've already forgot what the original question was, but I think those 2 points are still strong enough as is. But like I think I really like the way that they're interchanging. And again, I don't think Smith Rowe scoring, in my opinion, is enough for him to start next week. But again, I'm quite happy for him to come on at the 60 or 70 minutes because I think that's actually a really good place for him. And if you can keep doing that and keep scoring goals, I don't see any issue, and it doesn't make me want for him to start.
Well, I think Black, White and Fred makes a point which I was literally going to riff off, that I think, if you think about last season, it was frustrating watching Smith Rowe just really not bring it together when everyone knows he's got the talent, and you're scratching your head as to if it's stuff off the field or if it's a fitness thing or if it's a confidence thing or what is it. And in my dreams, I just hope that the introduction and the fizz that Josh King brings, if we sign a new winger like a Kevin, if Harry Wilson's in the mix, if there's stuff going on, it's exciting. I just wonder whether he'll be very enthused to start playing like that, because if he does, he's got the skills to actually back it up, and maybe that's the impetus that it changes things for him and for us.
Yeah, I agree. I think and Sam sort of made the point about Man City before. I think there's nothing better than having really good competition within the squad, especially when you've got a talented group of players and when the competition's coming from young players as well. And I'll even put Cess in there as a young player. I think when you can see the talent and the ability of those youngsters and they're taking their opportunity as well, it will just lift the players around them. I don't see people's heads dropping. I think it's exciting because all of a sudden you look at your squad and go, geez, there's some real talent around here. If I play well and play to the best of my ability and get into this team, we can do something special. And I think it's just kind of exciting to see that happening at the moment. And I think seeing Smith Rowe's face when he scored that goal, it was, he knew that he had the ability, and the players around him were all sort of looking at him going, yep, that's you. You can be that guy. You can score those goals, and you can sort of take control. And everything just felt very positive at that point, which was good to see.
I think it's more than just the benefit that you get from competition within the squad. I actually think it's a flavour thing. It's like if everyone is having a lot of fun and it's really sexy. You see this a lot with the Latin players, the Brazilians. If it's really sexy and there's little back heels going on, there's really cute little triangles, people want to be part of that because they want to be out there having fun playing like that, because it's not only great for the crowd and the crowd love it, but it's fun to actually participate in that. And I suspect that's the kind of football that Smith Rowe would really enjoy playing, because he's got that kind of he's got the skills to do that, and I just think he needs people around him sort of lifting him into that position.
He's just a white boy who loves bachata.
I'm going to keep moving things along because we've got a fair bit to talk about, and we've talked for a lot already. One thing to mention, though, that we haven't spoken about so far, Man United's goalkeeper, geez, he is terrible from corners. And the fact that we weren't able to capitalise on that is slightly disappointing. We got close a few times. Muniz didn't react quick enough, expecting the keeper to get a touch, and he didn't. Anderson rose high, couldn't quite get his head to one. Bassi had one where he should have probably done a little bit better, but sort of came off his shoulder. A shame that we couldn't capitalise, but if he's playing in goal again when we play Man United at Old Trafford, I feel like there's a goal there for sure. A quick look at the stats on the game. Fulham dominating possession, 52-48. More shots on goal, 13-10. More shots on target, 4-3. More passes, 419-397. More corners, 9-6. And more fouls because Chris Kavanagh was in charge as well. Look, it's an unbeaten start to the season. 2 draws against Brighton and Man United. I think if you placed those results mid-season, we'd be quite happy with them as well. Put them at the start of the season where we know Fulham often start quite poorly. I think, considering we've made no signings as well, I would take 2 draws from the opening 2 games. I'm not sure about you guys, but I feel like we shouldn't be too disheartened by the start to the season so far.
Oh, some draws feel like losses, some draws feel like wins, and both of these have felt like wins. So I'm nowhere near as sad as I could be.
Yeah,
I'm not sad. I'm not sad at all. Not sad at all. I think in the grand scheme, I think that's absolutely fine.
Man of the match, we put it to a vote in the Discord. We put it to a vote in our little WhatsApp channel as well. It was very close. It's currently gone to Sasa Lukic. I think it could have gone multiple different directions. Lukic, I think, had a very good game. Anderson had a very good game. Kenny Tete had a great game. Smith Rowe grabbed a bunch of votes towards the end of the vote there as well. Bernd Leno had a really good game. A number of good performances across the board. But I do think Lukic played well. He was passing the ball around well. He's looking like, again, we saw a different player last season compared to the first season. But again, I think he's potentially even taken a step further and seems to be just have that little bit more confidence, which I'm really pleased about. And I think it's really encouraging seeing Lukic playing well. Right, there's a bit of breaking news that I'll share just before we move on and preview the midweek game. Andreas Pereira, it appears, is most likely off. We sort of knew it. He was left out of the squad yesterday. But apparently a deal has almost been agreed now with Palmeiras in Brazil. The details aren't released yet, but we expect to find more about it in the coming hours. Dad, I'll throw to you first. It's been a transfer that I feel like we've known is coming for some time now, but we just didn't know how it would be structured, what's going to happen. How do you feel about the fact that we probably won't see Pereira play for Fulham again?
Well, when you opened with, I think Pereira's off, I thought that was a full stop after that. And a lot of people other than Skibby would probably agree with that. And I mean, but you know what? I'm sort of two-minded. I'm not a Pereira hater at all. I think I actually think we got a lot of benefit out of him. I think he was good for us when he first came, and he had very high impact early on. I think
Yeah.
a lot of things changed. When certainly last season when Marco was trying to turn him into a central midfielder. And I know he's played there plenty of times before, but he doesn't seem to make that work in our system. And he did really pretty averagely in that. And I think since then he's never really recovered his former glory within Fulham, or what he promised anyway. Look, he's a good player. I think he's an honest player. I like his work rate, and I've enjoyed having him. I think he's been part of a Latin and Brazilian vibe at Fulham, which I think has also been really important to our renaissance back in the Premier League. So I've appreciated that. But in all honesty, with Josh King now very much a force, and Smith Rowe threatening to kind of follow King's form and compete for that number 10, there is not a role for Andreas Pereira right now, and he can't get a game. Look, I'm sure he'd make the bench, but I think that's far beneath what he wants out of his football. And I think it is time to move on. I think he's been frustrating for us over the last 12 to 15 months, really.
Sammy?
Yeah, I think any frustration hasn't necessarily been directly his fault. I've got a lot of affection for Andreas Pereira. I've really appreciated him, like his entire time at Fulham. He came at a bit of an interesting time for us. And I remember him being known as the preseason Perlo at Man United, when he was always the bridesmaid, never the bride, and we actually gave him that opportunity. And it was actually a very lovely thing. I think he really came into his own. It's without a question, he's fully synonymous with the club now. He's no longer considered a Man United player. He's unequivocally a Fulham player. And there's been some frustrations there, but you know, you say it all the time, like a great servant of the club. But I really do like Andreas Pereira, and if it's hard because look, he's a bit older than we actually think that he is. And maybe if we got him at an earlier time, maybe we could have got some more, like, better years out of him. But I think we really squeezed every single part of him. And credit to Silva, all of last year, he was trying to find a place for him. He was trying to, like, fit a bit of a circular thing in a square peg. I always forget what the phrase is there. But yeah, I'll really miss Andreas Pereira, and what's the word? The unchristened captain of the Samba Whites. That's what I'll call him.
I think, as Claire says, he's in the Brazil squad now, so he has improved. I think he joined us, did a really good job for us, helping us with some Premier League experience. He's played 120 games for Fulham. You know, he scored a handful of goals in that time. He was a fairly key player, and kind of not undroppable as such, but a key, one of the first names on the team sheet every week for the last couple of years. And so I think he hasn't had the same impact I was hoping for last season. And like you say, with the emergence of Josh King and the signing of Smith Rowe, I looked at the squad yesterday and it didn't look excessively weak. With Pereira not even there, so I think that sort of speaks volumes. And when you look at how this could potentially free up some spare cash for maybe signing someone like a Kevin or another sort of key player, I think it's a good move. I'll be interested to see how much we are going to get for him, but it's time to go. Basically, a big thank you to Andreas Pereira though, because like I think you said, Sammy, he did a great job for us for a couple of years, and he's been a good servant of the club. So it'll be sad in a way to see him go, but I think it's sort of time for him, for his career, and also for Fulham to be able to take that next step as well. And these are some of the harder decisions maybe that you have to make, where this is kind of a first team player that we're selling.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get a good fee for him and can replace him in kind and spend some money. Midweek, this one throws up a few questions. We play against Bristol City, second round of the Carabao Cup. Marco sort of changed tact a little bit and took this competition a little more seriously. How do we see Fulham lining up? I don't want to spend too much time on this because it is just a smaller cup game, but do we see full rotation of the squad? Do we see some first teamers getting a start, players like Sessegnon and Castagna maybe, who we weren't expecting? Or do you think we're going to see a lot of youth coming through? Sammy, I'll throw to you first.
I'd ideally like to see some youth. And, I think with King stepping into a bigger role, and as you said, Steph stepping into a bigger role, I think it's a bit more of like a through line for them, because they'd probably be, not with Cess, but definitely with Josh King, they'd be very, very used to playing with him. And there's a massive benefit when basically players play together when they're familiar with each other. I mean, we saw all last year with Reece Nelson, Iwobi, and Smith Rowe. I think the more Josh King's profile and confidence actually grows in the squad, the more that actually opens up that conversation to actually blood those guys that he's been playing with more. So I'd like to see that happen.
Dad?
Yeah. Look, I think it's a tricky one. We've got a game against Chelsea on the weekend. It's a big game, and so we definitely need to be very strong for that in terms of our first team. And I'd be thinking in those terms first. So I'd be picking my team that I want on Saturday, and then thinking about who I can afford to give maybe half a game. I mean, I'd give Robinson a bit of a run, if not to start. I'd certainly give him some minutes. I would be probably giving, the likes of Wilson and maybe Adama a very good game. I think you want to win it. I think you want to win the game and progress, because you never know. With a bit of luck, you can actually have a decent cup run in the Carabao. So I wouldn't be disrespecting it and putting out a bunch of kids or a complete second team. I think a team like Fulham need to actually grab cup opportunities with both hands, really.
I think you're right. I think we'll see some players who maybe need some fitness. So I think we'll probably see Cess and Robinson. I'd say we'll see Castagna, Cuenca and Diop at the back. So, I mean, you could easily go Robinson, Cuenca, Castagna, Diop for your back four. Cess and Wilson on the wings. Probably see Kearney and maybe Reed start in the centre. Smith Rowe in the 10, and maybe Jimenez up front. I mean, that's basically a reserve team. It's a pretty strong team.
Yeah, but that's good enough. It's good enough.
It should be good enough to get over Bristol City, and I agree. At that point, you chuck some. I mean, you'll have some of the first team players on the bench just in case we do slip up and you need to bring them in. But as Steve Reynolds has said, stick Seth Ridgen in. Just signed the new contract, so. And I think he scored for the under-21s this week as well. A couple other players, John Asenga, who played, I think, quite well in pre-season. Could be interesting to see a few of those younger players get another run out. And maybe Josh King gets another run out just for some confidence. Be great to see him get on the score sheet maybe against a championship side and just sort of give him his first professional goal, lift his confidence a bit going into a Chelsea game where I think he could hopefully have a big impact. We'll throw to some questions. I'll take some questions. We've got lots in the Discord, and I would like to answer some of those, but there were some good ones that popped up in the chat here. Let me find one of them. David Wellington, here's a question. Anyone else think the combination of badge bias and financial stratification entrenched by PSR means that a Super League might be a blessing? Is the Premier League becoming too predictable otherwise? Sammy, I'll throw to you. Let's try and keep it as brief as possible as we tick over the hour mark.
No, I could not disagree more. Okay, so like we live in Australia. In Australia, there's a thing called AFL. AFL used to be VFL, WAFL, all these different leagues that were all strong and prosperous. And then they essentially made a Super League, and then took the VFL and then sprinkled in a couple of extra teams, and they've been slowly added to that. But what it basically did is it killed off the credibility, the financial strength of all the other leagues in the country just to facilitate this one thing. So it, I understand the point, but from my personal experience with that, you can see firsthand how it can actually seriously affect lower leagues. And also the beauty of football is even though there is a top six bias and a big name bias, football is about transcending that bias and having anybody be able to be in the conversation, because anybody can turn up to the game. And for that reason, because
I'm just going to cut in, Sam, because I think you said your piece anyway. I don't think it's a very good analog. I don't think that's a very good analog, to be honest. You know, the AFL system in this country is a locked league. There's no promotion and relegation, which is obviously a key component. But I'm not actually opposed to your thinking here, DJ Welly. I think, as we were having a conversation internally a few days ago, the Premier League and maybe other European leagues, they're all kind of a bit broken. And PSR, whilst it's presented as a way of ensuring that clubs don't trip up and don't sort of commit hurry financially and are so-called responsible, it's clearly a very cynical set of rules to entrench those at the top and make it just almost impossible for other people to catch them. So that I find incredibly frustrating. I think that is very relevant in terms of Fulham. Look at us. We've got incredibly wealthy owners who have dropped a lot of money, but even with all of their wealth, PSR still kneecaps them in terms of being able to spend their way out of trouble, which they could. They have the capacity to. They're very wealthy. They're not poor boys at all. Although, just sidebar, I do think they hide behind all that shit quite a lot as well, because I think between our owners and our CEO, they have a different strategy, and it's just about surviving. But that's another podcast.
Yeah, I mean, a brief answer. I wouldn't like to see a Super League. I don't love the gap that's being made where the top teams are far ahead of everyone else, and also the teams coming up from the Championship seem to be far behind everyone else. I think there is an imbalance there, but I would just hate to see the whole structure be changed in that way. You know, English football has been. I know the Premier League changed things, but it changed things from a more of an economic perspective, I'd say, than an actual footballing perspective. I wouldn't like to see a closed league because English football's never been. Well, someone's going to prove me wrong, but for a very long time, it's never been closed off where the top teams are able to just stay in the division because they're the top teams. I don't think that is the way any league should be run. The AFL is purely run like that for financial reasons because you can't expect tiny little clubs from WA to have enough money to be able to travel interstate every week.
The whole thing's different.
That's a different thing altogether. But I understand the thinking, and I understand why it could be a good thing. But I'd say rather than that, just get rid of the rules altogether, or come up
Well,
with rules that don't
one big
just
issue, Jack,
advantage one big team.
the one big issue with the proposed Super League previously was that it's basically an AFL. There's no relegation, and that is really bad.
Yeah,
That's
it's a closed door
really
league.
bad system. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very bad. They could really fix this really quickly. Bring in independent reffing into the Premier League.
No, I don't think that would fix it. The referees are already independent. You can't make them more independent.
So if the ref is independent, if the reffing is independent, how can you claim big club bias?
Because the refs are shit. They're still meant to be independent. You can't make them more independent. You're never going to avoid
Freelance
big
referees.
club. You're never going to avoid big club bias unless you've got AI referees who cannot have human decisions and cannot be affected by online trolling and by the nervousness of having to give a big decision against a big team.
I have said I want Wally referees in and around.
I mean, it will have to eventually come. But look, I think moving on from that question, there's one final question I do want to ask, and it comes from Mark, actually. He's posed, if we only get 3 players, well, he says 3 of the 4 players that Silva expressly asked for in the pre-match presser, what is the least needed? So Silva said 2 wingers, a striker, and a midfielder. I say to you, if we're only able to get 2 of those players, what do we think is the least that we could accept?
I would say I'd actually go probably a bet each way and go a winger and a striker. I was about to say 2 wingers, but I think a winger and a striker.
I actually think we have. Maybe contentious, but I actually think we have enough wingers. And then I'm also probably thinking this from the perspective of I think we might get Reece Nelson, but I think a new striker and potentially a new midfielder as well, just to really dense up that kind of area. I feel that we've kind of got like a surplus of like wingers who can kind of all do a job. So I'm not really wanting, but I definitely want a striker. And I kind of want it basically, if Sanderberg and Lukic get, or either of those two get injured, that's a massive hole for me. I want to clean that up. It's the exact same if it's either Muniz or Jimenez gets injured as well. So I'm just thinking it from that perspective.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think centre mid is the biggest one for me, especially if we sell Pereira. I agree. I think once you drop from Lukic and Berger, you go down to Kenny and Reed. That's a big step down, in my opinion. And I think we need a new centre mid who comes in and challenges for one of those spots. And then in my head there, I was tossing up. At first I said, yep, I agree with you, Sammy. We've got more than enough wingers, so I would like a striker. But at the same time, I kind of want to stick with Muniz for the season because I feel like he's our starting striker and we need a backup striker, which we have in Raul. We kind of need a third striker. I just don't see us spending enough money on like a first string striker to make Raul our third striker and Muniz our second striker. So maybe someone like Kevin to come in on the wing would be a good option. Someone who is going to be a goal threat off the wings, I think I'd probably take, because I just think if we sign a striker, it's not going to be someone good enough. It's not going to be a 30-goal a season striker, which is what I want. We're going to sign someone who might get us 12, and I feel like we can already get that from the players we've got. So there's a bunch more questions, but we're running a little bit on time here, so I'll leave those for After Dark later in the week. A big thank you, though, to everyone who's joined on the live stream. We've had really great engagement from so many people. We really appreciate the comments and people joining in. You can also pose questions to us for the podcast episodes on our Discord channel. If you haven't already joined our Discord, please do get around it. You'll be able to follow the games very closely live in a very visual manner. You'll be able to interact with other Fulham fans throughout the week. We have people all around the world, so there's constant activity on the Discord. Please do join in. There's transfer news, there's general conversations, there's all sorts of stuff in there. So do find the links in all of our bios and with all of our podcast episodes as well. I believe we've got links in each episode. So, guys, big episode, game during the week against Bristol City, and then a big game on the weekend against Chelsea. And obviously the transfer window as well, closing within the next 7 days, I believe. So there's a lot going on at the moment, and it's a big week ahead. So thank you very much for joining me for this one. Dad, thank you. We'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. Good to be back, and look forward to. Well, it'd be nice to get a win on the midweek, but very much looking forward to Chelsea on the weekend.
I agree. Sammy, I'm glad I threw to Dad first because your face completely froze for about 10 seconds there. Thank you for joining tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really conscious of my internet's going to cut out again. I really, really, really hate Chelsea. I've really, really enjoyed being here. Thank you very much, and good night.
Good stuff. Thank you again, everyone. And in fact, who wants to sing out the U Whites for us today? Sammy, I'll throw to you. See if your internet connection can handle it.
Come on, you Whites!
Love it.